In the silent core of the Andromeda sector, where stars burned like ancient memories and time moved with the grace of old empires, the Galactic Council gathered under the shining arches of the celestial dome. Composed of the most powerful civilizations across the star's noble species, with thousands of years of wisdom, the Council prided itself on balance, unity, and order. But today, the discussion centered around one unexpected name: Earth. Once labeled as a backwater planet, known only for its internal conflicts and primitive technology, Earth had recently become something else, something unpredictable. In only a few decades, humanity had moved from radio signals to faster-than-light travel, from basic satellites to deep space colonies. They had solved problems other civilizations had taken centuries to understand. And most importantly, they had done it all without the Council's help. This made Earth a problem. A threat. The Council decided to summon Earth's leaders, expecting them to obey, to show gratitude for being noticed by the galactic elite. But when the response came, it was short and clear: we decline. That one sentence echoed through diplomatic channels like thunder in a quiet room. Shock turned to insult. Refusal turned into rebellion. No species had ever said no to the Council, not without consequence. Within hours, the Council voted to begin Earth's containment. It would not be a war, they said. It would be control through pressure. No trade, no access to shared galactic databases, no station rights. Earth would be left isolated in the cold dark of space, its growth halted, its spirit crushed. Or so the Council believed. But Earth, strange and stubborn, did not respond with fear. They responded with silence. As the embargoes took effect, humanity did not beg. They didn't send apologies. Instead, their research labs worked through the night. Their engineers repurposed outdated systems. Farmers found ways to grow food in the harshest places, and coders turned to encryption and security, hiding Earth's data behind firewalls no alien had ever seen. Earth space stations stopped importing and started building. Scientists built new drives, ones that didn't need galactic fuel. They designed AI systems that learned faster than any on record. Where the galaxy saw a fragile world, Earth became a forge burning with quiet resolve. Meanwhile, curious eyes watched from the edges of the galaxy. Not all species agreed with the Council's ways. Smaller races, ignored or mistreated, saw Earth's courage as something new, something powerful. Messages began to trickle through the black. Offers of trade, hidden data, maps of forgotten star routes. Earth's diplomats didn't boast or threaten. They listened. They remembered. And above all, they prepared. Within months, Earth's name began to spread across forums and broadcasts, whispered in distant ports, and discussed behind closed doors. People wondered how a young planet could resist the Council and still thrive. The Council dismissed these rumors, calling them hopeful lies and wild imagination. But deep down, they began to worry. No one had ever resisted them without facing collapse. Yet Earth wasn't collapsing. It was evolving. By the end of the year, the Galactic Council noticed something strange. Their ships, when near Earth's territory, began experiencing signal disturbances. Their probes returned with incomplete data. And Earth? It remained quiet. Too quiet. That silence, once taken as weakness, now felt like something else. A calm before something bigger. Behind the skies of Earth, something was being built. The Council didn't know what it was. But they knew one thing for certain: Earth wasn't following the script. Humanity wasn't bending. And whatever was coming next, it would not be predictable. When the Galactic Council enforced its embargo, believing Earth would break under pressure, they expected panic and collapse. But something strange happened. Instead of falling apart, humanity grew stronger. Borders that once divided nations began to fade, and centuries-old rivalries were put aside as leaders came together to form a united body, the Terran Accord. It wasn't built on power or fear, but on purpose. Every country, every colony, every voice was given a place. The world, for the first time in its long and troubled history, stood as one. Scientists, engineers, and visionaries worked around the clock, not just to replace lost alien technology, but to improve upon it. They discovered new ways to generate energy from the very magnetic fields of their planet. Fusion drives became smaller and more efficient. Transport ships that once depended on imported fuel now moved faster and farther using systems designed entirely by human minds. Earth's defense systems, once outdated and clunky, evolved into quiet tools of precision, noiseless, trace-free, and incredibly advanced. But the most surprising change happened not in space or in labs, but in silence. While the Council tightened its grip, Earth's digital ambassadors, powered by advanced AI, began reaching out through secret communication lines. They didn't contact the Council's closest allies or dominant powers. Instead, they spoke to the ones forgotten by galactic politics, the isolated moons, the struggling fringe colonies, and the peaceful species who never had a voice in Council meetings. These groups, curious and cautious, found something in Earth that the Council never offered: respect. Conversations led to trust. Trust led to sharing. And soon, maps, trade routes, and hidden knowledge began flowing into Earth's secure channels. Technologies lost to time or suppressed by the Council were offered freely to humanity, and in return, Earth promised one thing: they would never rule. Only stand with those who wished to rise. In the outer rings of the galaxy, people began speaking of Earth not with fear, but with hope. They called it a symbol of possibility, a world that dared to say no and still survived. Meanwhile, the Council watched with growing confusion. Their strategies, used for centuries, were failing. Earth was supposed to bend, to beg, to return crawling. Instead, their trade networks were expanding underground. Their reputation was growing, and their systems were not weakening. They were improving faster than the Council's own. What made things worse for the Council was the silence. Earth didn't reply to threats or engage in long diplomatic messages. They simply moved forward, quietly and confidently. Satellites were launched without announcement. Probes explored deeper sectors without seeking permission. Earth wasn't ignoring the Council, they were outpacing IT.IN secret chambers of the Council's headquarters. Questions began to rise. How did Earth develop so quickly? Who was helping them? And most importantly, what were they planning? Council spies tried to infiltrate Earth's networks, but found only encrypted walls and harmless loops. Surveillance drones sent near Earth's orbit vanished without explanation. Some believed they were destroyed, but others feared something worse, that they were simply captured, studied, and returned without a trace. Earth's silence had become unsettling, and the growing respect it earned among non-Council species was creating a quiet shift in galactic power. Yet through it all, Earth made no announcement of rebellion, no declaration of war. They just kept building. Faster ships, smarter AI, hidden bases on distant moons. They welcomed refugees from oppressed systems and gave them new homes. Their message was never shouted, only shown: we don't need your permission to grow. For the first time in generations, the Council felt something they hadn't in ages: not anger, not pride, but uncertainty. Earth was no longer the overlooked planet they once ignored. It had become a rising force, guided not by conquest, but by unity, innovation, and patience. And deep within the Terran Accord's central command, far beneath the surface of the planet, Something new was being prepared, not for attack, but for the moment when Earth would no longer just survive. It would lead. As Earth's influence quietly spread across the stars, the Galactic Council's patience wore thin. Their plans had not worked, and humanity's refusal to follow their rules became harder to ignore. What was meant to be a warning had turned into embarrassment. Earth was not just surviving under pressure, it was growing, building, and gaining silent allies. The Council, unwilling to admit failure, chose a different path. They approved what they called non-lethal enforcement measures. It was a polite way to say they were sending warships not to destroy, but to intimidate, intercept, and, if needed, disable. A small but heavily armed Council patrol fleet was sent toward the neutral shipping lanes, where Terran cargo vessels had been seen, delivering supplies and helping independent colonies. These lanes were outside Council control, but close enough to make a point. The goal was simple: stop Earth ships, inspect them, and show them who still held power in the galaxy. But the Council underestimated what the Terrans had become. When the fleet arrived near the outer edge of the Aerith Belt, they found 3 Earth cargo vessels, traveling in formation, unarmed in appearance, slow-moving and calm. Council commanders, confident in their superiority, issued demands for immediate surrender. No response came. They repeated the message, adding threat to their tone. Still, silence. Finally, they moved in to board the nearest Terran ship. That's when everything changed. The Earth vessels suddenly came to life, not with weapons, but with motion. In seconds, their engines activated, and they began to move in sharp, calculated arcs. What looked like cargo ships were actually equipped with hidden propulsion systems far beyond what the Council had expected. In what became one of the most studied space events in modern history, the 3 Terran ships split the Council fleet apart, without firing a single shot. Using gravity manipulation fields and precision bursts of directed energy, they shut down engines, locked control systems, and disabled weapons, leaving the Council ships frozen in space, drifting helplessly. What shocked the galaxy more than the speed of the response was what happened next. Terran ships, once the threat was neutralized, extended docking arms to the disabled Council vessels. Medical drones were dispatched, injured officers were treated, and systems were stabilized to prevent damage. No lives were lost, no ships were destroyed. And yet the message was clear: Earth could defend itself with intelligence, not aggression. The event might have been forgotten in the vastness of space, if not for one thing: a group of neutral traders had been nearby, watching from the edge of the conflict zone. They recorded the entire encounter and uploaded the footage to the Galactic network. Within hours, the video had spread across systems. It showed Earth ships moving with elegant precision, like pieces in a perfect game of chess, disabling the larger, stronger fleet with moves so fast and clean that they looked rehearsed. No fire, no explosions, only control and clarity. And at the end of it all, the Terrans helping their attackers. The galaxy paused. For generations, strength had always been measured by destruction. Who had the bigger ship, the more powerful weapon, the faster strike. But now they saw something new. Earth had demonstrated a different kind of strength. Not just the power to win, but the choice to spare, to assist, even in conflict. Species that had once doubted Earth's place among the stars began to look again, not with fear, but with curiosity and respect. The Council, meanwhile, remained silent. The fleet was recalled quietly, and the incident was never officially mentioned in their records. But deep inside Council chambers, whispers began. Who was designing Earth's ships? How had they advanced so far, so quickly? And more importantly, what else were they capable of? In the void between stars, where secrets travel faster than ships, one truth was becoming clear to all. Earth was no longer the student. It was becoming the example. After the Council's fleet returned in silence and defeat, the halls of the Celestial Dome grew colder, more tense. Pride had kept them from admitting it publicly, but deep inside, the truth echoed louder than ever: they had underestimated Earth. Yet instead of rethinking their approach, they doubled down. The Council, made up of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, could not accept the idea that a young world from the edge of the spiral arm could match them, let alone challenge them with such calm precision. To them, Earth's quiet rise was not only a threat, it was a humiliation. And so, they made their next move. With a formal vote, they approved a deployment of the Tribunal Armada, a massive fleet that had not moved in centuries. This was not a patrol squad. It was the Council's most serious symbol of control, sent only in moments of galactic crisis. Before launching, they issued one last warning to Earth, expecting panic, or at least hesitation. But Earth's reply was short and steady, delivered across all known communication bands. "We are not your enemy, but we will not bow." There was no fear in the voice, only a quiet strength that disturbed even the most confident council leaders. As the Tribunal Armada moved through deep space toward known Terran trade zones, strange things began to happen. Council scout ships sent ahead to monitor Earth's movements started losing contact with their home bases. At first, the loss was blamed on space interference or faulty systems, but then patterns began to appear. Satellites in nearby systems, previously visible and tracked by Council scanners, suddenly disappeared from every radar. There were no signs of destruction, no wreckage, no energy spikes, just empty space. Alarmed, the Council increased surveillance, only to realize something far more concerning. The satellites weren't destroyed, they were cloaked. Hidden in place, operating silently, completely invisible to even their most advanced sensors. It wasn't a weapon strike, it was a message, written in the language of technology and timing. Earth was not just watching, they were already there. Within hours, more disruptions followed. Communication systems at key Council bases began to shut down, one by one. Not with explosions or hacking alarms, but cleanly, quietly, as if someone had simply flipped a switch. Supply lines misrouted themselves. Navigation charts glitched. Entire regions of Council-controlled space went dark. Emergency protocols were activated, but no physical threat was detected. No ships arrived. No demands were made. And yet the Council's network was crumbling from the inside. What Earth had launched was not a fleet, but a digital wave, guided by algorithms and deep system understanding, entering through backdoors no one had ever noticed. Terran engineers had studied Council systems in silence, and now they were demonstrating that they could shut them down without touching a single hull. It was warfare without war, a show of control without violence. Panic rippled quietly through the inner chambers of the Council. This wasn't what they expected. They had prepared for resistance, for open conflict, maybe even for surrender under pressure. But they had not prepared for this level of precision, this kind of quiet power that struck not with weapons, but with knowledge. What frightened them most was the control Earth displayed. They could have destroyed systems, erased fleets, crippled cities, but they didn't. Everything was reversible. The message, once again, was clear: we can, but we choose not to. That kind of power, combined with discipline, was something far more dangerous than any armada. Outside the Council, across neutral and non-Council systems, whispers became conversations. More and more species began asking the same question. What if Earth wasn't the threat at all? What if Earth was the example? In silence, they had exposed weaknesses that had never been addressed, and done so without claiming a single life. The Tribunal Armada, once feared across galaxies, now hovered in space with no clear orders. They had arrived expecting a battle. Instead, They were met with a mirror showing them just how unprepared they were for this new kind of strength. And back on Earth, deep beneath layers of code and defense, the Terran Accord remained quiet. They had made their point. The next move was not theirs. In the wake of the Tribunal Armada's silent failure, and the Council's growing frustration, a shift began to stir beneath the surface of the galaxy. Hidden in the quiet corners of star systems and behind encrypted channels, whispers turned into action. The first to step forward were the Varnak, a reptilian species long known for their brilliance in stealth engineering, but often pushed to the edges by the Council's favoritism. Without public announcement, they began supplying rare materials and data packets to Earth messages coded in old languages, technology diagrams lost to history, and star maps once buried deep in Council archives. Soon after, the Talari, a race of crystal-bodied thinkers known for their strict neutrality, broke centuries of silence and opened direct communication with the Terran Accord. They did not offer weapons or ships, but something more powerful: knowledge theories on energy folding, silent propulsion, and time-linked communication. Then came the most surprising twist of all factions within the Council itself. Small groups, tired of the Council's growing control and secret agendas, began leaking sensitive intelligence to Earth. These quiet supporters sent details of ship movements, encryption patterns, and classified reports of Council debates. They didn't ask for reward. They only said the same thing: it's time for change. But why were so many turning toward Earth? The answer was not power. It was proof. Earth had done something few had dared stand up without striking down. Their restraint, their quiet strength, and their refusal to use power for dominance had shown the galaxies something important. The Council, once viewed as guardians, had become something else entirely. Their laws favored the powerful. Their decisions silenced the weak. They ruled through influence, not fairness. And Earth, by simply saying no, had revealed what many had feared to say aloud: the Council was no longer a protector, but a quiet oppressor. This realization spread quickly, and with it came support from places Earth had never expected. Colonies on the edge of Council space, long ignored, began reaching out. Old mining stations sent encrypted offers of alliance. Freighter captains rerouted supplies to secret Terran depots. The movement was slow, silent, and powerful. In response, Earth didn't launch a rebellion. They didn't build a counter-council of elites. Instead, they did something bold: they invited everyone. Using their advanced AI systems, Earth created the Galactic Open Forum, a fully digital, secure, and decentralized platform open to all species, all planets, all voices. There were no ranks, no power structures, no closed doors. Every being could speak, vote, suggest, or listen. The forum was not built to control, it was built to share. On the first day of its opening, only a few thousand tuned in. By the end of the week, it was millions. Within a month, it was billions. Entire planets watched the discussions live. Debates happened in hundreds of languages. Ideas flowed faster than light. And most importantly, for the first time in generations, voices long silenced were heard by all. The Council dismissed the forum at first, calling it chaotic noise. But they couldn't ignore the impact. Species began solving their own problems without asking the Council for help. Trade routes were renegotiated. Conflicts cooled. Cooperation bloomed. Earth had created something the galaxy didn't know: it needed a place where every voice mattered, not just the powerful ones. And as the narrative shifted, so did Earth's image. It was no longer seen as a stubborn outlier or a bold upstart. It became a symbol, not of rebellion, but of possibility. What started as one planet's refusal to kneel had become a galaxy's quiet march toward a new way of thinking. From the Council's chambers to the outer moons of forgotten worlds, one question echoed everywhere. If Earth could change everything without firing a shot, what else was possible? With the Galactic Open Forum rising and Earth's influence spreading across systems, the Council's patience finally broke. Pride wounded and authority slipping, they called for a final vote, a full-scale confrontation to bring Earth under control once and for all. The decision passed with heavy hearts and angry voices, as fleets across the galaxy received one single order: prepare for deployment. Massive Council armadas began to gather at the edge of controlled space, their ships dark and heavy, built for power and presence. It was meant to be a display that would shake the stars, a force so overwhelming that even Earth would have no choice but to surrender. But before the Council's fleets could finish assembling, something unexpected happened. Earth's ships arrived first. Smaller in number, but sleek, focused, and silent, they took position just beyond the edge of Council territory. They didn't aim weapons. They didn't send demands. Instead, they activated a signal that reached deep into the Council's communication systems, hijacking frequencies once thought to be unbreakable. In seconds, every Council broadcast, every military channel, every secure terminal across the galaxy displayed one message: transmission incoming. Then came the truth. The screen lit up, not with speeches, but with evidence records hidden deep in Council archives, unlocked and exposed by Earth's digital teams. Years of secrets poured out like light through shattered glass. Documents proving how certain systems were kept poor so others could profit. Footage of meetings where peace treaties were quietly broken to create profitable conflicts. Hidden taxes, diverted resources, manipulated currencies, and entire colonies sacrificed in silence. It was not one story. It was thousands, stitched together with time and clarity, laid bare for every planet, every species, every leader to witness. Across the galaxy, people watched in disbelief. On peaceful moons, on crowded ships, in massive cities and quiet domes, screens flickered with the kind of truth no one could ignore. The Council's carefully built image of peacekeepers, of wise rulers, crumbled with every second the transmission continued. And then something even more unexpected occurred. One by one, Council fleets began to stop their movement. In several regions, captains ordered their ships to power down. In others, entire squadrons turned away from their assigned paths. And in a few places, officers sent private messages to Earth, pledging support, quietly declaring that they would not fight for lies. No battles broke out. No missiles flew. But the silence that followed was louder than any explosion. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw a power greater than weapons, the power of truth, shared freely, without threat. Earth had not needed to fire a single shot. They had shown the galaxy what had been hidden for generations, and in doing so, shifted the future forever. The Council tried to respond, but their words rang empty. Their denials came too late. Their justifications felt hollow. In the days that followed, protests sparked on Council worlds. Old allies asked hard questions. Independent systems broke away. What had once been a galaxy ruled by a few voices was now a storm of awakening. And at the center of it all was Earth, not as a conqueror, but as a catalyst. Their fleet remained still, silent in orbit. Not as an invasion force, but as witnesses to a moment that would change everything. The Council, built on centuries of control, now stood exposed and uncertain. Their power was not stolen. It was simply no longer believed in. And that, more than any weapon, was what made this the true turning point. Earth didn't destroy the Council. They revealed it. And in that moment, the galaxy chose a different path. In the days following the Great Revelation, the galaxy changed in ways no one had thought possible. The Council, once the unshakable pillar of order and authority, stood humbled and exposed. Its members, some ashamed, others silent, were forced to face a truth they had long buried. But what followed was not chaos. It was renewal. Meetings once closed to the few were now open to the many. Systems that had no voice were finally invited to speak. And sitting at that new table, not beneath it, was Earth. Not with flags of dominance or fleets of control, but with calm voices and open hands. The Terran Accord didn't ask for power, they asked for fairness. And because of that, they earned something greater than fear: trust. Humanity became a guide in this new age, not a ruler. They shared their technologies freely, energy systems that required no rare resources, medical advancements that healed across species, communication platforms that allowed even the smallest world to connect without cost. Earth encouraged autonomy, reminding each system that strength didn't come from submission, but from unity built on honesty and respect. Former enemies approached Earth, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. Where there had been distance, there was now dialogue. The Varnak offered their cloaking systems to developing worlds. The Talari opened their archives to young colonies. Even within the restructured council, voices once silenced found courage to speak. Inspired by how humanity had stood without striking. Wounds that had scarred for generations began to fade, not through grand gestures, but through small acts of shared effort. Earth never claimed to have all the answers. What made them different was that they were willing to listen, and more importantly, willing to learn. The Galactic Open Forum became the standard way to govern, a living network of voices that shaped decisions not through titles, but through collective reason. In this new era, information was no longer hoarded. Knowledge became the greatest shared resource, and with it came a wave of creativity the galaxy had never seen before. Still, Earth remained watchful. They knew peace was not permanent. It was something to be protected, not assumed. Their ships patrolled quietly, not to threaten, but to assist. Their AI systems kept the networks clean, ensuring no one voice could overpower the rest. And through it all, the people of Earth remembered where they came from. A small planet once underestimated, once isolated, that chose to rise not with force, but with focus. Their legacy echoed in every sector, every station, every species that had once lived in shadows and now stood in light. Humanity had proven that resistance didn't always require violence, and that real power came not from conquest, but from conviction. The story of Earth's rise became more than history. It became a lesson. In schools on distant moons, children learned not only the science Earth had shared, but the values behind it. Autonomy, fairness, transparency, and above all, the courage to stand for what was right, even when standing meant standing alone. The galaxy would never forget how close it had come to another era of silence and control. But because of one planet's refusal to bend, the stars now shone with new hope. And so, as the Council continued in its new form, and as ships carried trade and peace instead of fear, the name of Earth was no longer whispered. As a warning, it was spoken with respect. Not as conquerors, but as catalysts, they had changed the course of history. The stars, once distant and divided, now felt a little closer. A new dawn had come, and in the heart of it, humanity stood not above, not apart, but beside the rest of the galaxy, where they had always belonged.